so we wanted to open it up for people to share some of their stories, and we're hoping this is just the beginning, because we know, 30 minutes before a CLC meeting isn't going to capture your full story, but it's a beginning, right, for us to start recognizing some of the local stories that you have. I know some of you have been with multiple unions, so if what comes to mind is something, or if you were a rank and file worker, whatever story comes to mind that you would like to share. And I'm going to start with Donald Ray. I'm going to want you to explain for posterity purposes your name, the union you're with. And Donald, for example, I wouldn't have known this if we didn't go on a field trip during one of Kim Wilson's classes to where Donald works, and he shared a story which we subsequently shared the lesson in this story with multiple people through different trainings over the years, right? So it's just one example of how sharing your stories is so important and can inform. The story that you're going to share isn't written up in a book, right? It's not something that we've gone to a training and heard. This was something that was lived and led by the workers, and as a response to winning a first contract. So we're going to hand it over to Donald to share this story about how they won a strong first contract. And then while you're listening to Donald, please think about, a struggle in your workplace that you helped win, either as union staff, as a union member, and we would love to just hear from you. We're just going to do this for like the next 20 minutes. And like I said, this is just the beginning of a conversation. These are folks that work with Sean Mills. So if you've seen that video that we've played at the beginning of Evelyn Monis, right? That was a good example of, at a labor ed center dinner, Sean and I were walking around, and we just asked Evelyn, we were talking to her, we asked what role she played, and she shared that story. Sean made a video, and that video is now keeping her, tradition alive, right? And so these stories, I think we undervalue them a lot, and we really believe in oral histories as something we can learn from. So I'm just going to hand it over to Don, and then anybody that wants to share a story after that, and folks that just came in, what we're doing is we're sharing stories about labor struggles, right? It could have been something that you were an ally. It could have been something you were a rank and file member, part of a union drive, successful unionization, or even learning from unsuccessful struggles, right? Sometimes we learn from our failures too, right? So anything from winning a first contract, going on strike, any observation or lesson that you would like to share from your experiences. We want to make sure that we look back on 50 years of the Labor Ed Center, but we also recognize, right, the current experiences and leadership that we have in the room. So
my name is Donald Ree, and I'm a steel worker. I'm actually retired right now, but back in 1997, we had a corporate buyout of the local steel mill here by Allegheny Technologies, and we figured that things were going to change a lot. It was more like a family atmosphere there, and therefore we probably should organize. So we had an organizing drive with the steel workers, and we the typical organizing drive where we go out and we get signature cards so we can schedule an election. And we had almost 90% of the people signing cards, and we scheduled an election. Unfortunately, it takes a long time between the time we sign the cards to the time that the election actually happens. So therefore, they had a bunch of meetings every single week where they would make us go to these meetings and hear all these horror stories about unions and how bad are unions for us. And there was a lot of management that would sit in these meetings and basically trash unions and how unions have no power and this. And it was very effective, because by the time we actually had the vote, we ended up winning only by 51%. So basically 5 votes We won by 5 votes. So we started negotiations, and every single time we sat down with the company, once every couple of weeks, they would start out by saying, listen, you only represent 50% of the people. 50% of the people did not want the union. They voted against the union. Therefore, you're not really representing them. And they were just as a delay tactic, trying to get us to go at least a year, so they probably have another vote and stuff like that. So me, in that time, which was the president of the local, we decided, like, this is ridiculous. They're just gonna continue saying this, and we're never gonna get anywhere. So we had set up where we would write up a piece of paper that would say, listen, even though we might have not supported the union, we support the union now. And we basically would do like a blitz overnight, and one guy would do the night shift, the other guys would do the day shift, and hopefully we would get enough votes on that paper so that we could present to the company. Well, and if it didn't go our way, we were just going to throw it in the trash, make believe it never happened. So we did do that, and fortunate for us, 100% of the people signed that paper. So the next negotiations that we sat down with them, they said exactly the same thing. So he says, listen, it might have been the case then, but it's not the case now. And not only this is no secret ballot. This is everybody's name, and everybody supports the union now. So what are you guys going to do? We're going to stop this nonsense, and let's get down to serious contract. So that and the pressure they were getting from the steel workers and all the other locals, they basically ended up, 2 months later, we ended up with a fairly good contract for first contract. And a lot of it had to do with just the unity that the members showed. And after that, it was like every single contract after that. We also, part of their first contract was we have a contract that would terminate, had a co-terminus date with all the other contracts from Allegheny Technologies. And after that, we, like 2 contracts later, we fell in 100% with the rest of the steel workers from the rest of the other plants. And it worked out well for us. But the main point out of this is that, if people that are not organized and they're not united, you can't really win. I mean, it's, the steel workers themselves is a great organization. I love the union, as democratic as they come. But the fact is, though, the union is the members, like they say, and that proved it right there. Without our members supporting the people that were negotiating their contract, we would never got a good contract, and we would never got a couple of good contracts after that to fall in with the steel workers. So that's my story, and unity is how it works.
Dan Brush, Teamsters. Is that loud enough? I'd like to talk about open bargaining. Every union is making a mistake if they don't do open bargaining. I've been at my present shop. I've been a Teamster for 30 years, and my present shop, we just started open bargaining 2 contracts ago, and we're getting the best contracts we ever have. For the first time, all the members know what's happening during every stage of the bargaining process. It's really empowered them, and we've gotten the best contracts we've ever gotten, and we're more solid and more together than ever before. Now, if you're not familiar with open bargaining, it's a concept where all the members are on the bargaining committee, and it's really nice. We insisted on ground rules of no ground rules. So we had no ground rules at all. We could have as many members come to bargaining sessions as we wanted to. They're observers. They weren't the bargaining committee, but we would have times we'd get like several members show up, and as soon as we got done, we would write a newsletter, we'd email it to all our members, and it built a lot of power instead of everybody wondering until the last minute, like, here's your contract, and you have to decide in the next 4 days or 48 hours or week to accept this contract. So it's a huge, huge, wonderful thing, and I recommend that everybody does that. My wife is a member of a very large bargaining unit in the area, and they don't do our open bargaining. And it's really very difficult, and they haven't been getting good contracts. And I think a lot of it is because of the energy that the local has not been spending on internal organizing for the members and building union strength. So I think it's really important that these small things and union education, like is provided by the Labor Ed Center, is priceless, because they've really helped a lot of people move forward and get good contracts.
I just wanted to make sure you have a chance to highlight that, because you've added so much.
Well, music is a really powerful medium, and it's gets through to people. Woody Guthrie was great, but he's passed, right? But his songs still live. So getting involved with that is really important. And I'm actually involved, for the last year, I've been involved with a local organizing project. And I've got about 20 musicians that can't all show up at the same time, but we're really working on making it happen to get people to show up at different events. It's very important, and music is so powerful. It really is, and it enables people. It gives people courage. It makes things kind of a happy and exciting time when you're in a rally and people are like, "Ooh, I'm out of my comfort zone." You can play some music, have some fun, and people relax a little bit, and that's really important.
I'd walk in with the steelworkers like signs like at 7 o'clock in the morning, and some of these older teachers would look at me like I had 3 heads, like, what are you doing? But I was proud to do it, and I did end up getting non-renewed, but that's okay. That's my story.
It's so good to see your face, and they counted on seeing you every morning. It was great.
It was great. We had is Colin here? Colin Green. I met Colin and his dog every morning, and yeah, great memories.
Jim Pimentel, organizer with the Bricklayers Union, Local 3, and I can share a couple of stories from before I was in the union and why it's important to have one. So when I was young, 15 years old, I was working in a restaurant bussing tables. And it was kind of a family atmosphere. And a company bought the restaurant, and it kind of became more of like a corporate culture. And the morale of all the employees went down, and so we were talking amongst each other, and we said, let's have a walkout to show the new management that we're not happy. And so the day came for the walkout, and the only one that walked out was me. And granted, I was 15 years old, I didn't have a family to raise, I didn't have a lot of responsibility, but I was always a hard worker. And 2 days after the walkout, the management called me up, offered me a promotion and a raise to come back. And so I did, got the promotion and the raise, and that taught me at the nice young age of 15 years old that if you stand up for yourself in the workplace, you can do better. So that's one story. The other story is later on, in the early 1990s, I think it was 1991, I was probably in my mid-20s, I was working in my trade, but before I had the luxury of getting into the union, I worked non-union for 8 years. And I worked for a lot of unscrupulous contractors that were always nickel and diming me. And for those of you old enough to remember, the last bad recession we had prior to the Great Recession was in the early 90s. And there was no work around. And I was hunting for work, and I latched on with a contractor building a drugstore in downtown Taunton. I was making $14 an hour as a mason tender. When that job ended, we went to work on a couple of prevailing wage jobs in Rhode Island. And I knew that the prevailing wage was much higher than $14 an hour, but that's what the contractor kept paying me. So I kept my mouth shut until the work ended. 3 months later, there was no work, everybody got laid off. Me and 2 other guys went right to the Rhode Island Department of Labor the next day and filed a complaint. It took about 6 months. I got a call from the owner of the company. He says, hey, why don't you swing on by? I got a check for you. So I went by the office. I thought it was going to get heated. Maybe we'd end up throwing punches. But the whole atmosphere of the meeting was very casual. He handed me the check, and the feeling I got from the whole interaction was, I tried to screw you. You caught up with me. Here's your money. You're a great worker. I'd hire you again. I'd probably try to screw you again. So again, an example of why it's important to have a union. And now I've been in the union for 31 years, and every day I say, thank God for the union.
I go to Facebook Marketplace, and I find this great bike in Dartmouth for sale. I go there, I meet the guy, in his yard and all that stuff, $70. I'll give, do you have Venmo? All that stuff. He says, oh, I'm a union bricklayer. I just retired. I said, oh, Jim Pimentel. He goes, oh my God, that guy is God. He's the best. I am so lucky that that Jim Pimentel is on my team. That's what he said. That's what he said. He said, so proud to be in the union and so proud to know you.
Okay, my name is Elaine Safiolis, and I was a member of the New Bedford Federation of Paraprofessionals. for 34 years. And I was a union officer for 31 of those years. And from the time I retired, I just made 13 years of retirement. I'm still consulting with the union. I'm the last of the old-timers, if you will. Gee, there are so...
You know what I'd like to hear about is when you guys didn't have a contract for so long, and then you turned it around and got a contract.
Oh, that was when... Oh,
And
yeah.
the campaign.
That was, we were without a contract for 7 years. And that's when we had that fiasco with all of the superintendents. We had several superintendents within a matter of the 7 years. And we were actually negotiating with Mike Shea. They had picked him to be interim superintendent. And he was a healer. He is what the system needed at that time after Durkin. So we were negotiating, but they were in the process of looking for a new superintendent. So he stopped negotiating. He told us that he didn't want to tie the new superintendent's hands, and he motion like that. And I was on the negotiating team and was a little disappointed with that, but could understand, how we felt, because he was from another system. He had retired at the time, so he just felt that he shouldn't be the one to do it. So we were without a contract for 7 years. The new administration came in, and we finally, negotiated and got a contract. But I need to tell you that I had seen Mike at a fundraiser not long after that, and he made it a point to come up to me and apologize for not settling our contract. He says, I made a mistake. I should not have done that. He says, I should have finished negotiating with you. So that says a lot about the man, it really does. I think that as a union, you need to be involved with your fellow union members, wherever they are. And some of the good times we had were with the UMass Dartmouth. Whenever Dan Georgian, is Dan here tonight? No? Oh, I love that man. He would call us, and we would just go. Boston, the capital, wherever. We were very, very active, even with other unions, standing up with them. We stood up with the nurses out on Route 6, with Jill's husband. Down, yes, and I think it's very, very important for you to be seen. You just can't just stay in your little cocoon. You really need to be seen by everyone. Oh, there's John. Oh, okay, he's here, good. I remember a time we went to Woburn. The AFT Massachusetts asked us to go to Woburn for the librarians at the time, and they were new, so we marched, and Bert Latessa was the field rep at the time, and I forgot what the whole saying was, but he's chanting, and all of a sudden he says the word "ho." We looked at one another because you can't say that in New Bedford, so we were dying there. Yeah.